first episode of Beyond the Chair.
Yes.
Today we're here with Dee. Dee's a psychotherapist. So Dee, your business is psychotherapy.
That's right.
And it is called Room2Talk.
Yeah.
If you could just tell us a little bit about your business, about the ethos behind it.
Sure. I'm trained as a counsellor and psychotherapist, and setting up private practice, I called it Room2Talk because that's exactly what I wanted to be able to do, is to provide a room for people to talk. So I think my practice is quite different. Every therapist, counsellor has a different way of doing what they do, and I find my style of psychotherapy is quite creative.
Okay.
So I use music, I use art. I really give my client an opportunity to just express themselves. So
when you say you use like music,
yeah.
Like so all right, let's imagine I'll come along for a counselling session. How do you incorporate music into that?
So it's about what people bring to their therapy. So I give people the liberty to bring what they want to therapy. So for example, someone might have come across a song and they might feel that song expresses the way that they're feeling or an experience that they've had in their life. And I love music really helps me to relax, it helps me to relieve my own stress, etc.
I think everyone, I saw a program once and it was showing like the way that water reacts to different music.
Yes.
You've seen something similar to that?
Yeah, definitely.
So and obviously because so much of our body's made up of water, the different musics that we listen to affect our mood so dramatically.
It's so important, and this is another reason why I use music in my therapy, because as I said, I love music, and the majority of people listen to music, and as you just mentioned, it changes your mood. Like on the way here, I'm listening to a tune, helping me to deal with my nerves. And if I wanted to relax, it's not the same music I'd be listening to. Do you know what I mean? So I encourage people to bring themselves to therapy, and that is beyond the therapy room. So it might be music, it might be a piece of poetry that they've come across, it might be something that they have at home that helps them to relax or reminds them of a situation. So it's about bringing yourself to therapy, and it's more than just the individual.
Do you find it takes people a long time to open up to you, or is with that sort of stuff instantly as soon as they sit down?
It's really important to build up rapport with your client. So I always have an initial conversation over the phone first, so that people can get a feel for who I am. You want to get a sense of where you're going and the type of person you'll be talking to. So you have that initial conversation first, and then after that they're invited in for an assessment, and that assessment is basically to get an idea of what's going on for them, what they feel they need, what they want to get from therapy, a bit about the family history as well, a bit about how they're feeling, how long they've been feeling that way, and what they want to pretty much achieve by coming to therapy. So it's a process.
It's really interesting because obviously with your line of work, it's so similar in some respects to my life in the barbershop, because so many men come on a daily, weekly basis and tell me all the things that are going on in their life. I almost feel like I should be on the same sort of wage as a psychotherapist, because I feel like I'm doing the job without being paid for it. I feel like it should be like haircut this price, counselling. Like honestly, I swear.
2 for the price of 1.
Yeah, literally, I swear.
So you should be getting paid more than me.
But
But it's funny how people think that psychotherapists earn big bucks.
No,
Like what?
I mean, I don't know, but with on the chair, we're sort of trying to discuss different issues or different topics that happen in a barbershop on a regular basis, and one of the things that seems to be common in the last few years is celebrity related male suicides. And a lot of this is sort of stemming from depression and so on and so forth. I'd just like to get to understand from a psychotherapist's point of view, like what you think can be done to prevent this, or to assist people from, or prevent people, from going down that road.
Yeah, it's $1 million question, isn't it? And I mean, they say like 1 in 4 people in the UK suffer with some sort of mental health issue, and you're talking about males. Men don't talk generally don't talk.
You're right.
And when we think about the masculine stereotype of men, you know, having to be strong, having to be the breadwinner, having to be good in bed, for example, you know, there's a lot of pressure, and plus they're in the public eye. You know, who do they go to? So that's what I usually think of when I think about celebrities and the experiences that they're having. It's bad enough us in the community feeling that we're not sure who to go to, men aren't sure who to go to. You talk to your barber, where do I get help? But I don't want to go, I don't want to sound like I'm weak, I don't want people to laugh at me, etc. So there's a lot of pressure on men, I feel, in society, in general.
Not just amongst celebrities. I think because one that personally struck me quite hard or really surprised me was Robin Williams. Because, you know, like, for someone that's such a happy character or plays such a happy character in roles and so on and so forth, to see, you know, the flip side of it and see that maybe he wasn't actually as happy as he was on camera in his actual life, you know, it's a real shock.
So much goes on behind closed doors, and when you think about someone living with depression, they're having to live with it. So it's almost like they learn how to put on an act. When you're in a place of work, you have to go to work, and most people are like, you know, they have to go to work, so they have to put on an act. And it depends on your level of depression as well. Like, some people aren't able to go to work because they just can't get out of bed, they can't find the motivation, they haven't actually got the physical strength to get out of bed and to get on with everyday life. I mean, I've heard about Robin Williams, I was aware of his story, and you know, it's funny because when you think of his character, you're like, but he's such a funny, you know, happy guy, you know, you would never know. And that's why mental health issues are so difficult to spot.
Trailing on from that, are there any sort of signs that people can be aware of for people that are suffering with depression? Because as you said, you know, people put on an act and they act like they're so happy. Are there any like telltale signs?
I think it's about looking for a change in behaviour. Like, for example, you talked about your clients coming into the barber, so you know someone comes in on a regular basis. You know he's usually quite a jovial character, etc. Or he might be a really withdrawn character, and all of a sudden he's got this vibrato, and you're like, where did that come from? So it's about looking for those changes in behaviour. Or, for example, he didn't used to smoke or take drugs or drink, and he's drinking excessively, he's smoking, etc.
Like an escape or something.
You know, all different sorts of things. You know, different types of addictions. You know, doing more of something or less of something. So just those little telltale signs, which are really so subtle, they're really difficult to spot. I mean, if you break your arm, you know you've broken your arm, right?
Of course, change in behaviour, maybe,
you got the sling on, you got the cast, etc. It's very, very difficult to spot. So it is just about awareness and looking out for people's body language as well, and them becoming withdrawn, and also tips as well. Like, if, for example, someone does become withdrawn, and people start to say, but you know, he never wants to go anywhere. Every time we phone him, he doesn't want to come out anymore.
I don't, because I'm that guy, you know. I think my friends start calling me now. They, you know, like, I'm like, yeah, I'm coming, and then I get home, it's cold outside. I'm like,
you don't want to go anywhere, don't want to do anything.
I'm not depressed or anything, you know, but
yeah, but that could be something that you could look out for. And if someone, you know, says, you know, I'm just not feeling right, just make sure that, you know, just to try and stay in touch and support really in any way you can.
With Room to Talk, it's not just directed towards men, is it? It's you cater to women as well, and
in private practice I see people as young as 14. So I have teenagers who are literally coming from school and coming to therapy. I go into schools, I work with looked after children. Specifically with looked after children, so children who are in care, and I usually go into their school, or they might be in a residential home, and see them offer therapy in that way. And it's usually like a mentoring sort of coaching role as well, so you can kind of guide them and say, what about this, if you tried this, if you tried this, you know, what about college, you know. So there's a bit of, it's therapeutic mentoring when I'm working with young people, but in private practice it is therapy with men, women and young people.
Do you find there are a lot of young people coming to you, or really is that because of the influence from their parents though, or school, or how do they come across you?
Usually I get a call from a parent, a concerned parent, and when we think about what's going on in the community at the moment, So I've had parents who have called up who their son may have been stabbed, and they've noticed a change in their son's behaviour. He doesn't want to go to school anymore, or he's anxious, he's getting panic attacks, finding it difficult to breathe. She's noting that he's shaky, etc. So she wants to get him some help. It's usually mothers who call me. Or, for example, it might be someone who's committed a crime. And you get those calls as well, you know, can you come and talk to them? They literally want you to come to their house to talk to their sons, their daughters, because of some of the things that they may be involved in. So
I mean, I think for a lot of boys or teenagers now, with all the stabbings and you know, violence related crimes that are going on, I think a lot of kids, they go one way or the other, you know. A lot of kids are in a situation where they become reclusive, perhaps, because they don't want to experience that crime, you know, and put themselves in vulnerable situations. What advice would you give to parents to sort of install some confidence in their children, going to school, on their journeys to school, and just socialising with their friends?
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, because London has become quite a scary place, and I come across young people all the time who don't want to do anything, just like you said. And for some parents, they're like, "This is great. He doesn't want to go out. He doesn't want to go anywhere. You know, this is great. Keep him at home." But then on the other side, they're like, "But actually, he doesn't want to go anywhere. What am I supposed to do?" And maybe it's about the sort of organisations that you can get them involved in, like, for example, 100 Black Men of London, local community groups, things that are going on in the community, karate, taekwondo, sports, you know, those sort of things as well, so that you know exactly where they're going. They can plan their route. Sometimes those things, if they're in the community, they're not far from home, so little practical things like that, and knowing their friends. As a mum, talking as a mother.
No, but this is key though. This is key, you know. And this is the thing, because, you know, like when you used to get to your parents' house with your friends, you know, everyone pulls up their trousers, everyone's yes please, no thank you, whatever. But you're right, you need to really get to know their friends and know who they're hanging around with and what sort of social circles they're in. Definitely. So you're gonna do a Room2Talk tour around barbershops, or well, that's the plan.
Yeah, that's the plan.
That's what you'd like to do. So, what exactly are the plans? If you could just elaborate a bit and let us know, you know, what the vision is.
I want to take men beyond the chair. So, for example, you talked about the conversations that men may have when they come and tell you their life story, or tell you what's going on for them at the moment. I want to create a safe space for men to talk. And I think it was literally, I was sitting in a barbershop, I was sitting here, and I just had a vision, and I thought, men are here, they're all sitting here, they're all talking, they seem pretty relaxed, and I think historically, when we think about the barbershop, it's a comfortable place for men to go. They have that banter, they have the conversation about absolutely everything, you know.
Sorry to cut you, Dee, but do you think that in some respects, that is because there aren't any women here?
Well, I don't know, I was here. I was here, it didn't change the conversation.
That is fair enough. But what I mean by that is, do you think that men will open up to you confidently, or do you feel like, again, because of the stigma where men are supposed to be strong characters or whatever, do you feel like they'd feel more comfortable talking to men, or no?
You know what? If I'm being honest, Emmett, time will tell. I'm hoping that it's my personality will be enough, and the way that I present myself and my openness. And I genuinely want to support men from harming themselves. You know, when I think about it, these are my brothers, these are my uncles, they're my cousins. You know, they're people that I know, and they're suffering in silence, and it just doesn't have to happen. Just by a conversation, or knowing that you have a safe space where you can have regular conversations about what's going on for you. I know that men suffer from anxiety. I know that men are suffering from depression. I know that they're suffering from financial worries, etc., etc., etc.
Do you feel like a lot of men are in denial that they're suffering from these things?
Yeah, I do. I do.
Yeah.
I think that, and when we think about it, that's what impacts our mental health.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, if we don't want it, first part of getting help is admitting that we have a problem, right?
Yeah.
So admitting to what's going on for us, then finding ways to get help. And a lot of people don't know how do I find a counsellor? How do I find a therapist? You know, what are they going to do? So that's the sort of information I want to be able to provide. I want to talk to men about what a counselling session probably looks like, but it's not about offering group therapy. It's about providing information, guidance and support, but also space to have a discussion. So almost like, you know, so this is what it's like to talk, you know, and this is what it's like to talk to, maybe like you said earlier, a woman. This is what it's like to talk to people in a group, and for them to also know that they're not alone. You're not the only one feeling the way you're feeling. And I think that's when you think about issues around mental health and our emotions, etc., you feel so isolated. You know, it makes you feel so alone. You feel like you're the only one in the world who's ever had these experiences. So just providing a space, a safe space, where they feel that they can talk and just offload.
A lot of people go to the gym, you know, and exercise as a way of releasing happy endorphins. Do you think that this, accompanied with a good balanced diet, is enough to prevent yourself from going into like a depressive state or suffering from anxiety or anything like that?
I think it definitely helps. It definitely helps. But I don't feel that it's the only solution. It's about finding things that really support you. So, for example, it might not be a talking therapy. For some people, it's not about, they might not feel counselling's not for me, which we get a lot. So people try alternative therapies, reflexology, Reiki, etc., etc., etc. But I would encourage talking, because it helps you to offload, and it also helps you to explore what is going on for you. Why are you feeling the way you're feeling?
I think this is why, especially in the barbershop, so many people open up to me, because I think I'm impartial in their life. You know, like, I don't know your sister, your brother, your girlfriend, or whoever. So whatever issues you have going on, you know, you can come to me on a weekly basis or a monthly basis, and I'm going to ask you, like, oh, so what's going on with that situation? And, you know, I think sometimes I don't even need to give them any advice. Sometimes it's literally just me standing there listening to their problem, you know, and then, you know, you weigh it up. Like, sometimes, even though you may have an opinion on how you think they should deal with the situation, you know, sometimes you just stay back and just let them figure it out. Do you know what I mean?
Because that's what it's about. It's about people figuring it out for themselves. As a therapist, I'm there to support and to guide them, to really hold the space.
Help them understand themselves, in a sense.
Yeah, definitely. Why are you feeling the way you're feeling? I don't know, I've always felt like this. Okay, but we're going to explore
get to the root of the problem.
And it's easy, you know, sometimes it's easy for people to run away. So, for example, if we use men as an example, I find when men come to therapy, and this is my own personal experiences, they come in like, okay, right, this is the problem. You've got what? 6 weeks? So that's like 6 hours, fix me.
It doesn't work like that.
It doesn't work like that. You've got to be prepared to do the work. And what I mean by the work, they've got to be prepared to engage in therapy. They've got to be able to give themselves time to trust the relationship. So, you know,
that's a big part of it as well, though, isn't it?
Do you know
Trust.
what? I think it's everything. It's everything. I can't expect someone to come into my therapy room and tell me everything. Even when we have the assessment session, I know that's not everything.
But can you sense it though? You know, like when something's bothering someone, you know, like even me, like I could be cutting someone's hair, and like you said, you might notice a change in their behaviour or whatever. But sometimes you sense that they really want to tell you something, but maybe they're holding back.
And that's empathy. That's what counselling, psychotherapy is based on, that empathic relationship, being able to put yourself in that person's shoes. And, you know, we look out for everything. I'm what we call is a relational therapist. So I look out for very much what's not said. very much what's not said, kind
reading
of like
between
reading
the lines.
between the lines. Little things like, you know, every time you talk about your dad, for example, I notice that you're scratching your head, or you cringe, or etc. When
body
you talk,
language.
body language is so important because it's speaking volumes to me, and people don't even realise they're doing it.
I asked you this the other day, but it'd be interesting just for you to relay it for the audience. You know, like I when I go out and about, look at people's hair and I'm like, that is a shocking haircut, or you know, ooh, that trim's fire. Do you know what I mean? Do you find in your day-to-day life that, not that you analyze people, but do you find it hard not to sort of bring your job into it?
I think I'm a psychotherapist, full stop. It's my career and it's a part of who I am. So, but what I'm very aware of is that I'm not always at work. Yeah, there's a difference. Once you say you're a psychotherapist, that's it. People start talking. And you're like, oh, I'm not on duty. You know,
I'm not paid for this. Like,
paid for this.
You can book
book an appointment. But at the same time, I appreciate where you're coming from. I think what I genuinely have is a curiosity about people. I'm interested in people's story. So I do find myself thinking, I wonder if it's good. I wonder if this. I wonder if he's got children. I wonder if it's, you know, so I do find myself kind of thinking about the bigger picture.
Do you know, like, as a psychotherapist, you must be taught to see, like, telltale signs for certain things, like if someone's lying, or like, you know, like what you're saying about body language and things like this, Do you feel like, you know, with your kids, obviously, I know they're still quite young, but do you find, like, with them, you kind of analyse them, like, you're lying to me. And like, I suppose as a mother, like, maternally, you know anyway, right? But do you feel with things like that, or even with your other half, do you feel like you're like...
I think it's what we call in therapy a felt sense. So, you know, when you're in a situation, you feel something doesn't feel right, or you're talking to someone, you're like, I don't know about that, but obviously I'm not going to say to a client, I don't know, you know, I don't feel like you're telling me the truth, you know. But there's ways that you can bring people round to telling you the truth. If, for example, you've picked up that a client's probably not being very, very truthful about their experience. But at the end of the day, what's really important is you bring your life to therapy. So
it's what you get out of it, not what I get out of it.
So if people don't tell the whole truth, or find themselves catching themselves out, because a lie's always going. You don't have to think if you're going to be if you're telling the truth. You have to think quite a bit if you told a lie.
Especially to maintain it. They say that there's an old saying: a lie has no memory. You know, like because you're constantly making things up, and there's no use for that in therapy. But but it's about exploring. So, what is it about lying? Is that used as a protection? A defense? Is that something that you had to use in your life to get yourself out of situations? What sort of situations were you in? So it gives us an opportunity to explore a person's childhood. To really explore, and that's what it's all about as well. You know, that whole journey. We look at the whole life in psychotherapy. In counselling, we can look at the here and now, what's happening here and now. Psychotherapy looks deeper, looks at the here and now, looks at making changes, and also looks at where are you coming from? Where is this all coming from? And where are you going from here?
Where are you going? You know, what's the end result? And I think that's what's really important. And I love it, you know, when clients get to that, oh my gosh, there's nothing I love more. Like, you know, having clients who cannot leave the house, for example, suffering from such painful anxiety that they can't leave the house, and you know, first sessions probably being something like over the phone, just trying to encourage them to come to a therapy session, you know, and then them actually getting there, and you're like, you made it here, and then they come to the second session, and then they start to be on time to the sessions. So when you see that sort of growth, it's amazing. It really, really is. You know?
Do you find it hard not to get emotionally drawn in to people's stories?
Do you know, I'm human. So it's really important that we're impartial. So in our training, for example, where we learn a lot about, you know, just trying to keep our thoughts and feelings to ourselves. But this is why I'm so glad I practice the relational form of therapy, so I can say things to the client. I'm feeling a bit angry right now. I'm wondering how you're feeling, so you can check things out, and they might tell me, no, I'm not angry, I'm fine. You know, I notice you're body language has changed slightly. So, you know, I'm just picking it up and wondering, you know, just you can bring it back. So you can kind of bring yourself into the therapy in a therapeutic way. Yeah.
Do you find that because of your job, you're aware of your body language more?
Oh my gosh. And I'm a very expressive person, you know, but if there's one thing I don't do is I don't sit in the therapy room like this.
Yeah, cool.
You know, because at the end of the day, I'm me. I don't try to be anything different. And sometimes, like you asked earlier, if a person's story touches me, and I've had experiences where I've shed a tear in a therapy session, and I've said, you know, hey, I'm human. What you said really, really touched me.
That's an interesting fact, because on the subject of men, I feel like I can't say all men, but you know, I feel like there's this stigma about crying. You know, like men, they don't want to be emotional. They don't want to cry because whether it's seen as weakness or you know, I just feel like men generally try not to be emotional people.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. And again, I think this is what is quite damaging to their mental health, you know. But when you think about it, think about the messages that you're given as a child. Don't cry, man up, suck it up. Do you know what I mean? I've just fallen over and I hurt my knee.
Flashbacks of me talking to my son, like,
all right,
get up off the floor, what's wrong with you?
Yeah, exactly.
There's no blood.
Exactly, just brush it off, it off. What is that? I've broken my leg, Dad.
Literally.
But we've just got to be mindful, because that's us telling our boys not to feel. Because when we do that, you know, I really do believe that people can grow up emotionally constipated, where they're not able to express their feelings, and then, you know, they're not able to articulate.
Do you think this directly correlates to
men?
A lot of what you deal with? No, but depression and things like this, where they've perhaps had to bottle things up so much that they're just dealing with everything themselves in their own head rather than having that release.
For sure. And I mean, you think about mental health. Mental health is. It's a minefield. It's so big. It's so vast, you know, and there's so many different mental health issues, you know, not just depression, anxiety, bipolar, eating disorders, ADHD, autism, etc. It's all on the mental health. It all comes under mental health.
What impact do you feel social media is having on... I want to direct this towards the younger generation, because I feel like they're more heavily influenced. Because you know what it is? I feel like the younger generation, they look at people's lives on Instagram and think that it's reality. Like, not to say that people's life on Instagram isn't reality, but you know, they see people with I don't know, designer this, expensive that. And they think that that's how they should be living their life, you know. And I feel like there's a lot of pressure, especially on the younger generation, to kind of maintain that image and to keep up with the Joneses, if you get what I mean. Yeah. Especially like, you know, like to the extent where they might go out wearing an outfit, have a picture taken in it, and oh no, I can't wear that outfit again because my picture's been taken in that already. Do you know?
You think about, I'm sure, I mean, I understand why you're talking about the younger generation as well, but I think people in general have that, it has that same sort of impact on us, you know. You don't want to wear the same outfit again because you've had it on before. People are either really, really happy on social media, or they're really, really unhappy. So you have people who talk about their stories of how they're feeling. They might be displaying their whole life if they're going through a divorce or a relationship breakdown.
Do you feel that that's not to say good or bad, but do you think that in some respects has a negative impact on that person because they're portraying everything, or do you think it's good that they're having that release and showing everyone what's really going on?
I think it swings and roundabouts, because what I've found really useful is that people who are expressing themselves in that way, it's always helpful for somebody else. But I think what's...
Hearing someone else's story.
Hearing someone else's story. But I think what's really important is that individual has also got support. So if they are having those really bad experiences and they're constantly on social media, maybe crying or filming themselves in really uncomfortable situations, I think it's really important that they have some support as well, because if they're filming weekly daily, etc., it makes you quite concerned. As a therapist, it makes me quite concerned for their well-being.
Yeah, of course.
And social media as well is, as we know, very addictive.
And tell me about it.
Yeah, oh, so you know, do
Listen,
you? Should we talk about
the
it?
worst thing I could honestly do, if I wake up and go on Instagram in the morning, my day's ruined.
Yeah.
Literally, you know, like you could say, I'll just have a quick scroll, and next thing you know, it's like half an hour's passed, and you're just.
And it's true, you get caught. It's like going down the rabbit hole.
Yeah.
Where are
next thing you know, you're looking at your friend's page, your friend's page.
Yeah.
Oh, his brother, like it's just never ending, like.
Yeah. It's very true. I set challenges sometimes on Room2Talk, and my favourite is the 12-hour no phone challenge.
But even that, like, I don't even think it's just social media. I think it's phones in general. You know, like I can't even think back to a time when I felt comfortable without my phone, because now, if I was to leave my phone at home, I'd almost feel naked. Do you know what I mean? Like, how's anyone going to contact me? Like. You know, like where even the internet, everything's so accessible. You need to know something, pick up your phone.
Yeah, everything's on it.
And that dependency on your phone, I think, is bad.
I think I'm really blessed that I grew up in an era where we didn't have mobile phones.
Yeah, for sure.
So, you know, when I think back to that sometimes when I mean, we all do it, but we actually have people who come to therapy for social media and phone addiction.
Yeah.
Because it can become a problem. Just like gaming, social media and phone addiction can become
even like
serious.
Like my daughter, she's been on my case for the longest. She's 8. She's like, Dad, I want a phone. I want a phone.
Yeah.
And I'm just trying to hold out for as long as I can because I don't want you to have a phone.
Yeah. Why do you need a phone?
Yeah. But it's funny because you know, even if she gets like a pretend play phone or whatever, she's there like taking selfies. I'm like, what are you doing? Like,
but that's what she's seeing everybody else doing, right?
Of course.
That's why you asked earlier, as you know, is there a danger? Is there a danger to it? You know, people on social media. It's what we're all doing. We're cataloguing our lives. You know, and you think about it, we've been drawn into social media. We've been drawn into cataloguing our lives because we love. We're voyeurs. We love watching other people, which is why programs like Big Brother, etc., they do so well. We all love watching what other people are doing.
But this is why I think what you're doing with Room2Talk is so good, because if you can get a group of guys together and they start to open up and start to talk about their problems, then they start to realise that, do you know what, actually, my problems are very similar to your problems. Like some of the examples in the barbershop, you know, like a lot of guys come in and talk about their relationships. Yeah. You know, I'm not happy because my woman's doing this, or, you know, I think finance is a big thing. Yes. A lot of people stress about money, you know, they're not earning enough, or I think a lot of relationships as well. Financial strain is a big thing.
And when you think about it, I mean, they talk about the suicide rates in men over 40 suffer from suicide. Are the ones who experience suicide,
the highest rate of
rate of suicide. Thank you, Emmett. He's so good. I'm so influenced. And this is my sidekick. He is practicing to be a counsellor. But you're right when you think about it. But what are those pressures that they're under? So when you're in your 30s, have a house, have a partner, 2.4 kids.
Where does this all come from? How has society built this?
They're so archaic. They're so dated, but they still exist today, and we're still building our futures on them. And people are still under those sort of pressures. I have to get a mortgage. A mortgage means to the death, and most of the time it brings people to their death. Do you know what I mean? But it puts a lot of pressure on people. And as we said before, men are supposed to be the main breadwinners. And then if they're in a relationship where the woman's earning more than them, and they're feeling demasculated because she's earning more than me, and I'm supposed to be looking after the house, I'm supposed to be bringing home the bacon, etc. There's that pressure as well. And then she's unhappy because I'm not bringing home as much as you can't win.
I think it's both sides of the argument, though, isn't it? You know, men. I'd say men definitely would struggle. I can't say all men, but definitely. I think some men would have a problem with that.
I think I'd really encourage more open conversations in relationsonships.
That's a key
People
factor,
don't talk about it. Men are in debt and are not telling their wives or their partners. They're not talking about it. They're just hiding. I'll just deal with this. I'll just deal with this myself. You know, keep paying it, and they're drowning in it. Oh, does that sound familiar?
No. Whoa. No. I just see Dan sitting there scratching his head. I was like, bro. I'm thinking to myself, if Dan in my head, like. Nah, but this is what happens, though, isn't it?
Yeah. But because at the end of the day, you're the man. You're supposed to hold this together. I'm not saying, please don't get me wrong, I'm not saying all men are like this. I'm just saying that these are the stereotypical situations that men are in because of these archaic rules that, and you know, when we think about them, they're rules, they're bullshit really. They exist in society, but it's what we're supposed to be doing in our 30s.
What do you think has been the biggest step forward over the past few years in improving the conversation around mental health and getting people to open up more?
That's a good question.
I feel like you're looking forward to this one.
No, do you know what? I just think it's about creating awareness. There's so much more. You can YouTube, you can just type into Google, on social media, things like Dave, who are talking about having a friend called Alan. You know, when we think about the Prince's Trust, the Prince William is having discussions about mental health, and he's talking about his mother's experiences. There's footage of him talking to men in the changing rooms at football club, just having those discussions. People are talking about their experiences more. Celebrities, we spoke about celebrities earlier, they're talking about their experiences more. So it's breaking down the taboos around them, you know, and I think people are more willing to talk about the fact that something doesn't feel right. And it doesn't mean that you have a mental health issue. It might just mean that something doesn't feel right at the moment. And if you're talking about it and realise that he feels like that, she feels like that, etc.
How do you define that line between a mental health issue and I don't want to say normality as if it's, do you know what I mean? But how do you define?
I think it's about the length of time. So for example, you don't feel too good, so I'm gonna have a drink. A drink will make me feel better. Okay, so I don't feel too good. A drink's gonna make me feel better.
But then a year down the line, you're doing that.
Yeah, you're still doing the same thing. There's an issue. If you're waking up in the morning and can't get yourself motivated, you can't get yourself out of the house for a week or so. Okay, you know, you might be going through a bad time. This is going on for months. You need to go and talk to somebody. You need to get some support. So it's about the length of time. And again, like you said earlier, it's about if we're in denial and we don't accept that we have a problem, and we're not going to be able to get the support. So it's about, as I said before, it's just having those conversations, starting the conversations, and being in a position. I think I'm in a really privileged position. I take my career very, very seriously. People are coming and trusting me with their lives. So you know, it's a big deal. It's a huge responsibility, and I take it very seriously. So it's about making myself available. So I've got to look after myself too. So you know, I go to the gym, I do Zumba, I have therapy myself, you know, because I've got to make sure that I'm right. I have supervision as well, to supervise the work that I'm doing, to make sure that I'm working ethically and safely. Do you know what I mean? If I have concerns about a client, my supervisor might say, but Dee, the client's still doing this, you know, what are you going to do to support them? Have you told them to call their doctor, etc.? And I'm like, you know, I'm hoping that I'm practicing safely. So there's so much more to it, but it's a huge responsibility.
So with your up and coming tour of Room2Talk, the first session you're going to do is here at Headline. So when are you planning on doing this, and how can people get involved?
The 11th of November.
Okay.
Monday the 11th of November, 7 till 9 p.m, and it will be on Eventbrite, and you can look at my website, www.room2talk.org, also on my Insta and my Facebook pages. So the publicity will be going out for that.
And your Insta is?
Next month. My Insta is Room2Talk Therapy.
Brilliant. Excellent. So the 11th of November.
11th of November.
And you can get tickets on Eventbrite.
Yeah, tickets will be sold on Eventbrite.
Excellent. Alright, so we look forward to hearing more about this.
Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you so much for your time today, Dee. Honestly,
it's been
really educational for me as well. Actually, getting an insight into the whole psychotherapy, and maybe I can even like sideline this as my career.
Yeah, man.
Do you know what I mean? With the barbershop.
Extra bucks.
Yeah, I'm telling you.